everyone, Garfum here, and today I have a Witch Doctor build for you guys. Now before I get into that build, I want to talk about my future build videos and what you guys will be able to expect from those. Now if you don't give a crap about that, I'll put the time on the screen to skip to the actual build for today. Otherwise, stay a while and listen, guys. So, in the past, my build videos have been a little bit subpar because I'm always missing bits and pieces of information, and from video to video it sort of changed which information I provided, and you wouldn't really know what to expect from the video. Now I've made myself a layout to follow when I'm making the videos, so I know what to do when I make the videos, and you guys will know what to expect from me when you're watching the videos. So that layout will go like this. I'll introduce the build, tell you the class, the set, skill, or item it's based around, what the build is supposed to be doing, if it's supposed to be doing Bounties fast, Nephilim rifts fast, XP rifts, Greater Rift pushing, and then I'll give you the performance of the build before I explain the build. Now I'll do different performance tests depending on what the build is supposed to do. If it's supposed to do rifts fast, I'll do 10 T8 rifts solo back to back, and I'll give you the time. And then in future videos builds that are supposed to do rifts fast, you can compare those times and see which builds are better and which builds fits your playstyle, what have you, and then you can pick a build. And I have all these tests for all the other styles of builds I'll be giving you. I'll have performance tests for all of them, and then the rest of the video will go as expected. I'll tell you which items to wear, which items should be in the cube, the skills, Paragon Points, and then at the end I'll have short snippets of those performance tests, and I'll have it linked in the video to the full performance tests if you're interested. And then at the end you can expect my traditional outro. So that's what you guys can expect from my future build videos, and I'm hoping that this will really increase the quality of the videos, and you guys will hopefully come back for more of them because you'll know what to expect. So now into today's build. So today's Witch Doctor build is going to be a speed build designed for clearing Nephilim rifts and Bounties. And the build is going to be based around the Manajuma set for the increased movement speed in Hex form and the increased damage to Hex, the Arachyr set for the increased damage to Hex, and as you can probably guess, the build is going to be based around using the skill Hex. Now for the performance of the build, I did two tests. I did a test to test its ability in rifts and to test its ability for Bounties. For rifts, I did 10 T8 rifts back to back solo in 60 minutes, and for Bounties, I did all the Bounties in Acts 1 through 5 solo on T7 in 40 minutes. Now keep in mind, when I did these tests, it was with this weapon right here, which is a very subpar weapon for the build, so that definitely lowered the results of the build. Okay, now on to the items you'll need for the build. So while I'm talking about the items you'll need, over on the left here I'll have the stat priorities for each piece, and for this build you'll want to prioritize damage and cooldown reduction. So take critical hit chance, critical hit damage, and then CDR for your stats, and then vitality after all those for tankiness and survivability. So for a weapon, you'll be taking the Manajuma's carving knife. For your offhand, you'll be taking the Manajuma's gory fetch, and these are both required. There's no alternatives to your weapon or offhand. And for your boots, you'll be using Arakhyr's stride. For the pants, Arakhyr's legs. For the chest, Arakhyr's carapace. For the helmet, Arakhyr's visage. For the shoulders, Arakhyr's mantle. And for the gloves, Arakhyr's claws. Now these are all required unless you want to put a Ring of Royal Grandeur into the cube, and then you could drop one of these pieces for an extra piece in any of those slots. But I recommend taking each of these pieces. Now for rings, you can take Focus and Restraint, although you won't proc it that much with this build since you'll mainly be using Hex, and that isn't a generator or a spender, it's just on a cooldown. So it doesn't proc the Focus and Restraint that much with this build, so you could alternatively take Convention of Elements and Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, or a Ring of Royal Grandeur for your rings. Now for your belt, you also have a few options. I'm using Belt of Transcendence, just some of those fetish sycophants help just kill stray enemies. But also you could take a Vigilante belt for the reduced cooldown, or you could take a Witching Hour, which I don't have, for increased damage, or a Chrome's Buff belt for the increased movement speed. Now for bracers, you have a couple of options. You can take Strong Arms for the increased damage on knocking enemies back, since the Hex Explosion will knock your enemies back, or you can take Nemesis Bracers to spawn enemy elite packs, which will work well with Ingiam, which is what you're going to want to take on your weapon in the cube. Or you can take Coils of the First Spider for extra survivability when you're out of Hex, for life per hit, and you take 30% less damage. Now for the amulet, there's not really a certain amulet that you have to have, but good amulets will be Flavor of Time, an Elemental Resist amulet, or a Hellfire amulet. And for the Hellfire amulet, you'll want to take either the Revive passive or one of the passives that I'll touch on later when I talk about the skills. For your legendary gems, you're going to want Bane of the Trapped for certain, and then I also recommend using Bane of the Powerful for killing elite packs, and you'll be killing them often enough that you'll almost always have the 20% increased damage. And then your third gem, it's kind of up to you. You could take a survivability gem or Effacious Toxins for the poison damage and the increased damage. Now for your regular gems, you'll want Topaz in your pants and chest, and in your helmet you'll want a diamond for the cooldown, and in your weapon an emerald, of course. For your cubed items, for your weapon you'll want an Ingiam. For your armor, you can take Nemesis Bracers, or as I mentioned earlier, Coils of the First Spider. Jewelry, you'll want a Convention of the Elements. Now, the reasoning for taking Ingiam is obviously to get in and out of Hex as fast as possible. So after you kill an elite pack, if you have 20 to 30% cooldown reduction on your gear, combined with one of the passives you'll be taking, you'll be able to go in and out of Hex instantly without a cooldown, so you can sit there and hold down the key and kind of channel it going in and out of Hex form, doing multiple explosions back to back. And then once you've killed the pack you're on, you'll just go back into Hex form and run to the next pack, and then hold it down, run to the next pack. On to the skills. For your primary, you'll want Corpse Spiders with Leaping Spiders for the poison damage, and the reason you're taking Corpse Spiders is to direct your Spider Queen from your Arachyr set, and to proc your Focus and Restraint. For your secondary, you'll want Fire Bats with Plague Bats for the poison damage and to proc Focus and Restraint, and you get increased damage with the Arachyr set, so this is a good source of secondary damage if your Hex is on cooldown. Now you'll also want to take Zombie Dogs with Lifelink for survivability and a little bit of damage. You'll need Hex with Angry Chicken. This is a must-take skill. It's what the entire build is based around. So you transform into an Angry Chicken for up to 2 seconds. That can explode for 1,350% weapon damage as poison to all enemies within 12 yards. Now with the Manajuma set, that will last for 15 seconds instead of 2. You'll get 100% additional movement speed, and with Manajumas, the damage is increased by 200%, and anything that dies from that explosion will also explode for the same amount of damage. And the Hex damage is also scaling with your 6-piece Arachyr set. Now you'll also want to take Piranhas with Piranha to group things up, and you'll take Gargantuan Big Stinker for the poison damage and the area damage that he provides. Now onto your passive skills. You'll want Confidence Ritual, deal 25% additional damage to enemies within 20 yards. Now things that die to your explosion, most of them will be within 20 yards except for things that die to the explosion procced from your explosion. Those might be outside of the 20 yards, but most of them will be within 20 yards of you. Grave Injustice, this will reduce your cooldown by 1 second for enemies that die within 20 yards. So when you pop Hex and you kill things with your explosion, that'll also help get Hex back off cooldown as fast as possible. And then take Pierce the Veil, 20% increased damage and mana costs are increased by 30%. Now you won't be using mana most of the time. Most of the time you'll be doing all your damage with Hex, so it's pretty much a free 20% damage increase. And then Tribal Rites. Reduce your cooldowns of the following skills by 25%. Hex, Gargantuan Fetish Armies, Summon Zombie Dogs, Big Bad Voodoo, and Mass Confusion. Now obviously we're taking this for the 25% cooldown reduction on Hex, so you can get Hex back up faster. And with all that CDR combined, like I said earlier, you should be able to go in and out of your chicken form whenever you please, as long as your Ingyam is procced. Which is also why you're most likely going to want to take Nemesis Bracers to try and keep it procced as often as possible. Now if you're having survivability issues, you can drop Pierce the Veil for your Cheat Death, Spirit Vessel, or for Jungle Fortitude, take 15% less damage. Now for your Paragon Points, you'll want to max out move speed first, for sure. And then you could put your points into maximum mana if you're using Fire Bats a lot. But if you end up not using Fire Bats a lot, you can just skip max mana and put it all into Intelligence. Or if you're having survivability issues, you could put some into Vite. So for offense, you'll want to be taking critical hit chance and critical hit damage first, and then cooldown reduction and attack speed last. For defense, you'll want to take life first, then armor, then life regeneration, then all resist last. For utility, you'll want to take area damage first, life on hit, resource cost reduction, and then gold find. So guys, that's everything you need to know to run the Witch Doctor's Poultry's Wrath build. Now the rest of the video will be highlights of me testing the build. If you want to see the full video of me testing the build, those links will be in the description. Otherwise guys, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like, leave any comments or questions down below, and remember to subscribe to see more guides. That's all for now, and I wish you guys all a wonderful day.